Coming up on Nebraska Stories, a drama coach helps her small school realize a big dream. Omaha's oldest neighborhood theater gets a new life. An award-winning composer who's only in middle school. And a look back at a man some call Nebraska's Schindler.
Always on guard. Hit those. Ready to fight. Stay close together in all kinds of weather. We are a pack. Hit that.
Tammy Madam is a dreamer. She's also an English teacher at Malcolm Middle School and the head coach for the Malcolm High School theater program.
Who brings it in?
Like clockwork, Tammy and her students spend every fall preparing for the state one-act play competition.
The jungle became his home.
Tammy is one of 3 directors who coach the students. She's enlisted help from her husband, Mike, and a former student, Austin McKee.
What we're gonna hear is total silence and dark on stage. We're gonna hear 3 hits, boom, boom, boom. Everybody's gonna run on, monkey noises, loud, 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 loud.
Perfect. That's what we want, is we want kids involved in this program. So much so that we go recruit kids.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
There are about 180 students enrolled at Malcolm High School.
Good job last night.
Half of those students are in the drama program.
Well, and it helps that I teach junior high, 6, 7, and 8. So I have 3 years with these kids where I see that they have a skill in this or they have an interest. You're like, whoa, you, drama, come see me. You're a quiet person that you know can be a student director. I see you. And so being able to recruit those kids who might not normally be singled out for something spectacular that they can do on a court or on a field, but to know that, you know, I can come and do this.
2, 3, 4.
Theater is a mental game. Kids that are involved in theater exercise their minds in ways that doesn't always happen in the classroom.
3, 4, 5.
You're
6,
combining
7,
action
8.
and music and the line delivery. I believe there are connections made that just connect those places in the brain that just going to school sometimes doesn't.
The Malcolm Theater program is successful despite not having a theater space. During one-act season, Tammy arrives early every school day to prepare the gym for her students.
We would practice on the high school gym floor. You would drag out any and all of your set pieces. You'd take all the volleyball nets down. This is like 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. And that was every single day. Plus, then the light trusses had to go up and down every day.
So it meant literally taking every piece that we needed out of storage, put it up, use it, take it down. You know, we would have to leave the gym like we found it.
Then last spring, a parent told Tammy about NBC Television's Rise America grant. In partnership with the Educational Theater Foundation, the grant would award each winning school $10,000.
Our superintendent, Mr. Twilliger, is probably one of our quietest yet biggest supporters. And I said, okay, there's this grant from this NBC theater program, and it's a $10,000 grant, and explained, you know, ideally, this is what I'm thinking we would like to do. I said, I need a letter of recommendation. He's like, okay, cool.
There was a written part, and we actually had to produce a video.
The time is just before dawn in Malcolm, Nebraska, and a rooster crows. Only there are no roosters here, just a graveyard of large set pieces used in past productions.
It told the story of homelessness. Our anchor song was Phil Phillips' song, Home. And Genius here ended it with, we're gonna make this place our home. that said it all.
Tammy had big plans. If Malcolm won a grant, she was going to construct a building for her theater students. It would be a place to practice and a place to dream.
All of us at RISE, NBC, and the Educational Theater Foundation are thrilled to announce that your school has been chosen to receive the NBC RISE America Grant.
You are one of 50 high schools.
We won, and then it was like, oh, whoa, this is real.
Once that happened, we realized, maybe we need to dream bigger.
So let's see who wants to join in the big dream party.
We're in a small community. Everybody knows what's going on, and word got around pretty quick. And we were able to identify fairly quickly some folks who were able to dream big with us. The really cool thing is those same folks not only were dreamers, but they were doers. They were people that had skills, had connections, had abilities. Without them, this wouldn't have happened. There's just no way. It was amazing when once we cast the vision, people that had the right abilities suddenly just started appearing, it seemed like. And we kind of turned that piece of this whole big puzzle over to them, to their expertise, let them run with it. And that was so neat to watch. We had a number of specialized pieces of equipment out here that really made this whole construction much, much safer and possible.
To not have to rent them.
We never saw
for
a bill.
the weekend.
Never saw a
or
bill.
for the whole week that it stayed here, because Nebraska weather, there were a lot of days that had you rented that machinery and you couldn't perform that task that we were going to do, that's money that we would have lost. But instead, it was gifts to us.
Yeah, and not only were the pieces of equipment provided, but in several cases, equipment operators provided by that company at no cost. That's how this thing snowballed.
The $10,000 turned into seed money. Donations of more than $60,000 came in from the community.
Involving the community in it, so it's not just like some secret thing they're doing up by the football field. Just having them feel like they were involved in it too, so that they could see the excitement.
They could see the reality of a dream that's just, literally grown from the ground up.
There are days I'm amazed at these kids. They'll come in early morning for practice, have a full day at school, and then they'll have football, volleyball, softball, and won't get home till 10:30, 11 at night. And then the next morning, they're back by 6:15 in the morning to start all over again. You can't forget the costume moms. We didn't do anything with the costumes this year. You give them the vision, and boom, they're off shopping at Goodwills and making things.
I don't like it.
These kids, man, they devote a lot to be part of this. Quality, one-act programs, and are finding ways to carve a few dollars out of extremely tight budgets to continue these programs, one-act, speech, band, choir, the other performing arts that are out there. And we're thankful that we've got an administration, a board who are very supportive of what goes on here. We're just thankful.
The students are performing a one-act play based on The Jungle Book. Tammy wrote the script and Mike scored the music.
Mowgli forced that tiger out of our lands. And as the rains came down,
It's the first public performance.
Just a little piece.
I don't know if it is true.
There's not an empty seat in the gym as a community of Malcolm turns out to support the students as they prepare for the state championships.
It'll take time. Let's start with your hand in mine.
Very impressive for a small
And my
town.
grandson sure can play those bongos.
My daughter's a monkey.
It's like a family with these kids.
Everyone here is just having a really good time, so it makes it easy to have fun when everyone else is.
You know, they got 90 kids out or whatever this year, so they're obviously doing something right.
Your mom was okay. There's a lot of community involvement in this production, and they like to come and see what their time and money and efforts have helped to put together.
You can tell just looking around, this is not a show that one person does. And it's the people, it's the moms that do the costumes, you know, people that work on building the building out here and put things together. That's what's beautiful about this. It's a small town that comes together and does this. That's what I love.
You know, for the first 4 years of this theater's history, we're in the silent era.
Almost everyone enjoys going to the movies, and in Omaha, that often includes a trip to the Dundee Theater. For nearly 100 years, the Dundee has filled its screen with movies both big and small.
So December 1925, the Dundee opens. In 1929, you know, sound arrives, and that brings in this new era for cinema in this building as well. What you would have found at the Dundee for a while would have been maybe what you would have expected, you know, films that are coming out of Hollywood at the time. In the 1960s, you know, a number of changes happened. You know, in the early 1960s, the Dundee rebranded as an art house, and audiences could come and see Fellini's 8 1/2. 1965, theater shut down a little bit and then reopened for what became a historic 118-week run of The Sound of Music.
The hills are alive with the sound of music.
And we still hear from so many people that remember seeing The Sound of Music at least once, and usually more than once, at the Dundee. And then you get into the 80s, you started seeing, you know, American independent cinema, starting to see more international films, the Midnights program that happened here.
I used to walk to Dundee Theater to watch the movies when I was younger.
I used to come when I was a teenager for midnight movies, and it's always kind of held a special place in my heart.
In 2013, the Dundee Theater closed its doors and went dark until Susie Buffett's Sherwood Foundation purchased the theater and gifted it to Filmstreams.
Can I get a show of hands of Filmstreams members tonight? Awesome.
Filmstreams is an Omaha arts group dedicated to preserving filmmaking as an art form, achieving part of that at the Dundee Theater.
We felt it was so important that this continued to operate as a movie theater.
Renovations improved the original Dundee while respecting its legacy.
It's the last of its kind in Omaha, longest surviving, you know, single-screen neighborhood cinema. And to have seen it go away too, I think would have felt like we were really letting something go that could have been saved.
The new Dundee Theater opened on December 1st, 2017.
With Filmstreams renovating and reopening the Dundee Theater, the way that people in this community, the way that foundations and companies have responded to that vision and the idea of the Dundee being someplace that's really special has been incredible. This is a really special building, just that film history alone. And then when you add to that the experiences that have been had here. You know, when a young person comes in here and sees a movie for the first time, they're seeing, they're sitting in a room that generations of Omahans have enjoyed. This was a building that so many people had memories of going to movies here, and we're, I think, just really relieved to know that it was going to be saved and it was going to be around.
Welcome to the world of Winston Schneider. Just a typical 11-year-old who's an award-winning composer. This piece is called Scherzo of the Feather Stars. It won a National Association for Music Education competition last year. Winston worked with professional musicians on a performance of the piece.
I started piano lessons when I was 5.
Rainy Parade in the key of D harmonic minor with my eyes closed.
While I was practicing piano, like this is over like a period of time, the ideas, they just started coming to me in my head, and I'm like, it would be sad if these ideas went to waste.
The first was called Snowman, Snowman, Don't You Melt. 6 years later, it's pieces like String Quartet in E-flat major, and this, called Arousing of the Arrow-Jawed Ants. It mixes other things the homeschooled 5th grader enjoys, stuff like fantasy novels and insects.
It's called the arrow-jawed ant because it has 2 arrow-like shapes with points for the mandibles. They get aggravated easily, and they're not fun to mess with because at the end of their body, they have a powerful stinger that delivers powerful venom.
Now find a chord that is going to clash with that.
B minor.
Okay. It's kind of interesting, isn't it?
This afternoon, Winston is working on something new, adapting a German poem for a British choral competition.
And then maybe this could be for quiet.
That's awesome.
I've worked with some talented kids in the past, and my own kids I consider talented, but Winston's really in another class. It just comes to him so naturally, and he just has a curious mind, so everything just opens up for him.
I would sing to him songs at night, as I do with both my kids, and then pretty soon he would start to say, you know, Mom, sometimes you sing that in E, and sometimes you sing that in F, sometimes you sing it in F sharp, but I really prefer the key of F. Start on this note. And then he'd give me the starting note to sing this lullaby to him at night.
For Winston, there are no limits, no boundaries. He wrote another piece called Insect Suite that incorporates special effects for the audience, like the smell of a stink bug, created by putting oil and herbs in an envelope. What's next?
Some projects I want to do are compose a piece for every element of the periodic table because I like studying chemistry and the periodic table of elements too. I also collect the elements of the periodic table. It's been fun. And I also want to write an insect opera, an opera about insects. I'm not done with the idea about insects yet. I guess really anything can trigger an idea no matter where I am.
The Academy Award-winning film Schindler's List tells the story of a German industrialist who saved hundreds of Jewish workers from the Nazi death camps. As improbable as it seems, a man from Nebraska also saved hundreds of Jewish lives. He grew up near Homer, Nebraska, where in the 1880s he rode his horse to a one-room school. In the 1920s and 30s, he rose to prominence as president of the New School in New York City. He used his influence there to rescue almost 200 European scholars.
If Nebraska needed their own person called Schindler, this is the man who made a similar achievement, and it is nothing short of remarkable.
But it wasn't easy. He had many critics, some from his own university.
People who were saying, don't do this, Alvin. I mean, come on. This is not our mission to bring German Jewish intellectuals over here and create something different. That's not how we started out. I believe what he did was the bravest act of any university president in the entire history of American education.
Our hero's name is Alvin Johnson. He is the newest inductee into the Nebraska Hall of Fame. Have you ever heard of Alvin Johnson?
No.
Alvin Johnson, no.
No.
No, I haven't.
No.
I've never heard of Alvin Johnson. Never.
The baseball player, right?
I've not heard of Alvin Johnson.
I'm sorry. I feel an immense sense of guilt at not knowing that.
Alvin Johnson was born on a farm near Homer, Nebraska in Dakota County in 1874.
If you'd have met him when he was 10 years old on a farm in Homer, Nebraska, you'd be asking him, well, what do you think about farming?
He became kind of scholarly in the eyes of his friends, and being a gangly youth, they gave him the sobriquet of Frogman.
When he was 18 years old, he enrolled at the University of Nebraska, where he was tutored by none other than Willa Cather, who said of one of his freshman compositions, "You write not badly, but you don't see." But Alvin Johnson did have vision. After graduating from Nebraska and getting a PhD from Columbia, he rose to become one of the founders and finally the president of the New School for Social Research in New York City.
Among the things that he carried over into the creation of the New School was the belief that the intellectual activity had to connect to life. You had to get civically engaged.
One of the jobs of the New School president was to recruit some of the best scholars in the world to come to the school and teach.
What Alvin Johnson believed is you got a lot of people out there making decisions, and the quality of their decision-making is going to get better as a consequence of understanding these things. So he believed in bringing these phenomenal people to deliver lectures. And people who were already educated could sit in the audience and say, oh my God, I never thought of that before.
All three of us are. Jump on, Jerry. Ready? You ready? Ready? Keep on calling.
Alvin Saunders Johnson, humanitarian, educator, economist, innovator in American adult education, creator of a safe haven for Jewish scholars fleeing Nazism, author of America's first anti-discrimination legislation, elected to the Hall of Fame in 2012. I have seen 3 or 4 of the very few photographs that were ever taken of Dr. Johnson, and it was a challenge for the sculptor to create an image that was a great likeness with very, very scant information. And I think the physical representation of him here is appropriate to his greatness.
I think it's really important in trying to capture the essence of someone is to use the bust and use things in that bust as symbols to represent their accomplishments. I thought his hands were very important. His grandson I was talking to yesterday, he's like, I hung out with Alvin for a summer. He's like, he had the biggest hands, he was a farmer. He worked with his hands and he read and elevated himself and in doing so elevated many others over the history of his life.
Adolf Hitler came to power in Germany in 1933. Within months, every Jewish professor in Germany was fired. By the end of 1933, the first concentration camp was built. It was called Dachau. Soon it was illegal for Jews to hold any government job. With remarkable foresight, Alvin Johnson saw what was coming. At the New School in 1933, he created a graduate school called the University in Exile. It was a way to bring scholars into the United States from Germany. Just how difficult these individual rescues were can be seen in the escape route of Polish scholar Dr. Alexander Turin. Dr. Turin made his way from Poland to the Black Sea, where he took a small boat to Istanbul, then another boat to Smyrna, where he was joined by his wife and son. Together, they proceeded by train to Baghdad, and then flew to Karachi, and finally got to Bombay, where they boarded the ship, the President Roosevelt, and by way of Cape of Good Hope, made it to New York City. In addition to saving lives, Johnson's dramatic rescues brought a new generation of gifted educators to America whose teaching impacted thousands of students. Is that worth being in the Hall of Fame?
Oh, absolutely. And when you look at the talent and the intellectual power that came over to this country as a result of people like that, absolutely worthy of the Nebraska Hall of Fame, and obviously much more than a baseball player.
The professors at the new school created such a dynamic atmosphere, it attracted a 19-year-old student from Omaha named Marlon Brando. Brando said, "I was only there 1 year, but what a year it was." Another student was playwright Tennessee Williams. 3 years later, Tennessee cast Brando in the Broadway premiere of A Streetcar Named Desire. In his autobiography, Alvin Johnson was so modest that Brando and Williams weren't even mentioned. Johnson's low-key manner throughout his lifetime was classically Nebraskan.
He was born and grew up in Nebraska, bachelor's and master's degrees at the university, and the people I've interviewed who talk about him always bring up that he was a farmer at heart. He never lost his Nebraskan-ness.
Watch more Nebraska Stories on our website, Facebook, and YouTube. Nebraska Stories is funded by the Margaret and Martha Thomas Foundation.